Welcome to the Grow Renaissance podcast. Let's nourish the world.
Okay, everyone, welcome to this call. So this is a recorded call. We're going to record this to send it to members of the Grow community, other node owners and members of the Grow community in a lot of different aspects. So just everyone be aware that this has now started being recording. We've done this as a webinar so that we could record it and also go through a presentation. As I do that, if you're here live, if you have questions that pop up, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. Just put your questions in that Q&A, and at the end of this, I'll make sure I go through them. We'll also allow anyone that's here live to go through and ask questions and be promoted to panelists so that we can talk more openly as well. So the format of this, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go through a brief presentation on an overview of Grow, an overview of 2024, which was really our first live year and everything that has happened. I'm going to show some statistics about 2025, what's happened really in the last 37 days, and then a roadmap for what we're looking at for 2025. I'm currently sitting in Geneva, Switzerland. I just left some meetings with some of our partners, particularly Trifera was just here. Some of you may know them. You've heard of them in the past, doing some really cool things that I'll talk about here shortly. So just a reminder, if you have questions, save them till the end or throw them in that Q&A section at the bottom, and we'll get to those at the end. Let me share my screen here. All right, Scott, I can see your face. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, everybody, welcome to Grow. Most of you on this call are node owners or prospective node owners, so you know what our goal is. But I want to start this. I think it's always good to come back to the roots of what is our vision, what is our mission. And so many of you have seen this before, but I think it's a good reminder. I think oftentimes we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And so the Grow is a blockchain, and our goal is to harness that technology to nourish people, animals, and the planet, with the overall vision to decentralize the global ag and farming industry. And the reason for that is over the last 100 years, it's become very, very centralized. If you look at this graph on the right, you essentially have 10 very large for-profit public corporations that control the entire food economy. And although coming out of the Great Depression, that led to a lot of growth, solved a lot of hunger, created a lot of global trade, we believe it's also created a lot of problems. In fact, I sat today and was part of a meeting with Bayer. If you're not familiar with Bayer, you can look them up. They do about $38 billion a year and are one of the largest distributors of food in the world. One of their biggest problems right now is their current yield, particularly in their corn crop. And part of that problem is they've ruined the soil and they haven't regenerated the soil. And so we spoke with them this morning about ways in which we can help them track and trace the methods that they're putting in to regenerate that soil. They spend about $3.9 billion a year in R&D on how to do that. And they're looking for a decentralized solution on how to do that. And so the reason that I bring that up is obviously it's new and exciting and happened this morning, but also, as many of you have listened to me, I used to get on a pedestal and give this presentation and call it the Grow Revolution. Over the last 9 months, I've changed that second word to being the Grow Renaissance. And the reason for that is it's very easy to vilify the companies that you see on the screen now for some of the negative things that they do. But also what I found is as we've started to work with them, everyone wants the same thing. The farmers want their soils to be healthy and produce. The middlemen want to be able to distribute and be able to have good, high quality food at high yields. And the highest level of the companies right now, they want to be able to continue to do that and continue to provide value. Because if you don't provide value and you kill the soils, then nothing works and everything dies. And so that really is the root of what we're around at Grow, so that we can make producers the hero of the story again. Without our producers, without men, women, new AI, going out into the fields, putting in blood, sweat, and tears and time, nothing grows. And so we want to be able to bring transparency and trust back to where is that production happening, what's happening at that level, and be able to make sure that the end consumer knows that story so that we can return our confidence and trust in the quality and source of our food. I've done this bet many times, and most of you have probably heard it. I have still never lost, which is what I call the grow bet. I have everybody raise their hand and say, think about the food you ate in the last 72 hours. And if you can tell me where it came from, what went into growing or raising it, and the biodiversity or carbon footprint of that piece of food, then I'll send you a Bitcoin today. No one's been able to do that. Our goal is that I lose that bet every single day because we create a decentralized mechanism to track that so that we can accomplish our mission, which is to truly nourish the world. So anything that goes into nourishing our soils, growing and creating from the earth, whether that be growing plants or raising animals or ourselves as the humans and stewards on this planet, how do we do that in the best way possible? I just left a meeting this afternoon where a lot of opinions and a lot of data was put out on what is the best way to nourish the world. Where we are at with Grow is providing a decentralized mechanism that as much data can get put into as possible so that we can start to match the best traditions of the past with the best technology of today, which I believe is blockchain and AI, to start to understand what really are the best ways to solve the problems that we have today. And I believe it's matching those two things together. I love this quote. I've started sharing it a lot, especially over the last 3 months. It was attributed to Henry Ford. I actually heard recently that somebody said he actually didn't say it, but we're gonna let him claim it. He said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. When I look at what we are doing, when you talk about nourishing the world, when you talk about solving world hunger, when you talk about having trust and transparency, I have yet to meet someone who doesn't agree with those tenets, who wouldn't like to know as much as possible what they're putting into their body, doesn't care about the environment in one way or another. And so there's a lot of solutions, a lot of companies that have come out that have tried to solve this problem. However, what I believe is they're doing it by training a faster horse. And what we have and what I believe we're building with the Grow blockchain is truly a new way of doing things. And moving from Web 1, which is the information economy, Google, Yahoo, Netscape, this is where you had information at your fingertips. And moving to a platform economy where you could build on top of the Internet of Things. That's Facebook, Instagram, Shopify, Squarespace, and a lot of different ways in which you can use the Internet of Things to create value and create a company. When I look at Web3 and blockchain, this becomes the ownership economy. Instead of, to use a Scott Bird example, instead of an extraction economy, where everything in particularly Web2 was about extracting data, extracting profits, and extracting from the people that were actually using and creating the platform, we actually become where we can all be involved in that process. But that takes a new way of doing things. And that new way of doing things is not the faster horse. It's an entirely new railway, which is built on top of the philosophy of Web3, which is the ownership economy. And that's what we're building with Grow, so that we can go from a centralized system into a blockchain system where every single one of those colored dots is a producer or a consumer or a creator within the platform. And so one of those, the first way to think about that is being someone that owns and operates a node license. And those nodes are what actually run the blockchain. Without the nodes running and without them talking to each other and processing that data, we don't have a blockchain. We also don't have a governance framework to exist of how this blockchain can run and grow. And so that's what we have right now. In the last year, on January 16th of 2024, a year ago, we launched the Grow blockchain. And it has been going. We just reached our first year. And so what I'm going to do now is go through some of the ways that we've improved over the last year and focus on what we're working on right now going into 2025. This graph right here, this image on the right, when you think about the blockchain, when I think about the blockchain, I think of it as this centerpiece. that allows other things and other companies and other projects and other utility to come in and use it. And the more people, the more transactions that we have on that blockchain that fit underneath the umbrella of nourishing the world, the stronger that we get as a network. So I wanted to go through first some of our current project stats. So when you looked at the last year, we had three main objectives on what we were going to do on the project side. And the project side is, how are we going to create utility in the blockchain? How are people actually going to use it as a technology? And so when I talk about the Grow blockchain, in this conversation, we can break it up into two pillars. You have the blockchain as a technology, and then you have the economy or the crypto side that is mined and rewarded from running those nodes and by what happens in the transactions. And so currently right now, the projects that we are looking at the most and that have had the most momentum going into this year are getting food that our consumers know where it comes from. They're directly from the farm, and then shipping to the consumer and accepting the Grow token in exchange for that food. And so we have been able to launch 8 different NourishMart vendors. We have them in 3 different countries, currently shipping across the world. So I'm going to stop this screen really quick, and I want to show everyone this NourishMart. So right now, if you go to thenourishmart.com, you will be able to see, one sec. There we go. So you'll be able to see these farms and these foods. So we updated this site from when it was initially launched. This project is all about empowering small-scale farmers with cooperative initiatives and getting food in the hands of people by accepting the Grow token. And so you can go on this site. If you have Grow token, you will have to bridge it to the Ethereum network in your Grow account. So you just go bridge, and then you use that ERC20, and you can have food shipped directly to your door. So if I was in, I believe this is in Australia, you can click here, go through, buy this food, have it shipped to your house. The exciting thing for us in this is we've been able to launch on 3 different countries and 3 different continents. Our goal, which I'll talk a little bit more about at the end, is to get this on 6 different continents in the world and make Grow and the NourishMart global. The more global that we become, the more that we will be able to expand the network, especially outside of the United States. The other thing, let me reshare this. So that's the NourishMart. The other stat that we've been able to do is we've been able to put credits on chain. So we took one of our partner farms, and it was Royal Family Farming out of Washington State. We created and minted 52,788 carbon credits that were verified by our partner Treefera and were then sold to Nestle for just under $1 million. This project is going to gain massive momentum in 2025, which I'll go over shortly. But to show a picture of this, this is a picture of one of the NFTs. So essentially what happened is every single one of those credits were tokenized via a non-fungible token on the Grow blockchain. It looked like this. Then Nestle was able to get that inside of their Grow wallet, click into that, and then when they activated their NFT, as you see here on the right, they can go in and pull in all of the metadata that was applied to that credit. It can also not be transferred again. And so to use blockchain language, that NFT was essentially burned and cannot be tracked again. So solving a lot of the greenwashing and duplication problems that existed in the carbon market. This is another example of credits that are currently being minted. These are maple credits. These are improved forestry management coming out of Quebec. The other thing that we've done on the project side is we launched the Grow Renaissance podcast. So for anyone that is on here that has not listened to the podcast, I highly recommend listening to it, especially the first 8-ish episodes. There's a lot of information that goes through the background of what we're doing, some of the experts in our field. We had one of our legal experts on the blockchain come on and do an episode with us. We had Scott come in and do an episode. We're adding 1 to 2 episodes a week to this podcast to keep everyone updated and abreast to what's going on. But this is on all podcasting platforms. So you have Spotify, Apple, it's also on YouTube. But I'd highly recommend following that, listening to that. This is probably the most up-to-date resource for things that are happening day to day and week to week on top of the Grow Discord. And this is much more in depth for what's going on. So that's the project updates. I'll come back to that as we look at the roadmap. But I want to go through some current blockchain stats. And so we talk about that Henry Ford quote, and those projects are amazing. And by the end of the year, I think 12 months from now, I could probably have an entire hour-long presentation of the projects that will come onto the Grow blockchain. But what's really exciting and the key catalytic point that we're at right now and over the next 6 months is making sure that the railway system that all of this is building on is growing, that network is growing, and that everything's moving in a positive direction. And so some exciting stats for us is over the last 12 months, we've been able to get 34,948 Grow accounts on. What this means is somebody went to Grow and they set up an account. Now, about 7,000 of those did not set up a wallet. But what we do have is 28,805 active Grow wallets on our native chain. That number is a very good indicator of growth within the blockchain space. I'm here in Switzerland. I'm meeting with some very large market supporters in the blockchain space, looking at who are the next kind of front runners in the blockchain space. And our growth in these numbers are hit every benchmark that they want to see. We also have 25,233 active nodes currently running. So our node network is very strong, continues to grow, and we put a lot of growth into that, especially over the last 6 months. Just some graphs for you to see on what's happening inside of the space. So number of transactions. When you look at this line, we continue to add more and more transactions. So this is from January of this year to today, as well as with number of accounts. On this next graph, you see our transaction compared on the left with Bitcoin. I'm going to talk about the price of the Grow token here in a minute, but I want to talk about the graph that I believe is the most important when you look at the growth of a blockchain. This is Bitcoin on the left. So it started back in 2007. Almost no one was using it until about 2013. And from about the end of 2012 to the beginning of 2016, you had very, very little adoption. That is what we looked like until about November of last year. So January to November of last year was almost no line, which is why I didn't pull it up on the right graph. In November of last year, as we started to launch more publicly, as we started to talk to more and more people in the space about what we are doing, you can see the graph on the right in terms of growth. I believe we're following a great line of growth in the number of transactions on chain that will then lead to the market deciding what our price does. So if you look at the price of Bitcoin, yes, it goes up and down following cycles. We're also right now, for those of you that are familiar with the crypto cycles, we're just past the last Bitcoin halving, and we're probably somewhere a little above the bottom of every cycle. And so we're very well positioned, I think, to time the market along with the number of transactions. But this is what we can control, is the number of transactions and things happening on our chain. I wanted to put this on here because we just updated how you can see all of the things that I just showed you. So the graphs that I just pulled, they come from the new Grow Blockchain Explorer. And so we will put this in an email out to everyone with the link, but you can actually go on and see all of the latest blocks, all of the data that's happening on the chain, and you can compare it and you can pull up those graphs for yourself. We updated this and launched a new one about 3 weeks ago. So now as I go into, I do want to hit just the Grow token right now with a disclaimer that I work with Grow United. Grow United is a company that works to add transactions and utility on top of the Grow blockchain. We don't have any correlation to what happens to that token or the digital ward. But what we do is we design it to have utility within our ecosystem and then allow people to use that token within the ecosystem. I pulled this screenshot from this morning. For those of you that are unaware how to find this, you can download CoinMarketCap. If you have CoinGecko, we just did our application with them yesterday and should be on them shortly. But you can look up Grow and you can see what's happening. So over our first year, as you talk about transactions, we had some slow growth in transactions, but things are starting to move. And you'll notice here that as transactions have changed and started to increase, in the last 30 days, the value of that token has gone up 105%. In the last 7 days, it's gone up 175%. And in the last 24 hours, it's gone up 68%. So as I look at this personally, I look at the first year of distribution as a base foundation year. How do we get people aware of what we're doing? How do we get as many nodes activated as possible and continue to decentralize the network? As we step into 2025 and year 2 of the blockchain, now it's about continuing to increase utility, continue to increase those transactions on chain. And as we do that, allow the market to continue to show green. And so our 2025 key objectives, I just want people to be aware of at a high level, is continue to grow our wallets. So we would like to grow to 150,000 Grow wallets, which we are well on pace to do. We'll get to 50,000 active nodes within the network, making us one of the largest decentralized node networks in the world, and solidify key partnerships. What I mean by solidifying key partnerships is by working with larger companies or key influencers that can increase the amount of transactions on chain. We are in some very good conversations with those, and as those continue and materialize, they will add the transaction volume. Our Q1 key objectives that I want you to be aware of and things that we need help from the community of is, number one, we want the Nourish Mart in 6 continents. And so for anyone that has connections or live in continents that are not in North and South America and Europe, we would like connections there so that we can launch the Nourish Mart. We're very close in India, but we want to be able to ship food that can be traded for the Grow token, particularly the ERC20 Grow token, in every single continent and ship to any one of our community members. We also want to run 5 million carbon credits through the Grow blockchain, which right now we're on pace to do. We want to have 50,000 Grow wallets by the end of Q1. We will also be introducing a smart flow via smart contracts. And what this means is the blockchain is all about trust and transparency. And so that as revenue comes in to Grow via node sales, NFT sales, transaction volume, what's actually happening with that funds? Where is that going? How is it helping grow the network? All of that is being developed right now to be in smart contracts and to make transparent to the community, and is a key objective for Q1. Also having 30,000 active Grow nodes, so growing by about 4,500 nodes in the next 60 days. The key partnerships that we're working with right now is Maha. So those of you that are familiar with the United States politics, we have made an agreement with Make America Healthy Again. And as long as Bobby Kennedy gets his nomination from the Senate, we will be able to work with them and use and leverage our blockchain to be a mechanism to prove that the initiatives that they put into the government, that they put in with the US, that they're actually working, that they're making progress, and that the data that's getting put in is in a trustless system, which can be the Grow blockchain and will be the Grow blockchain. Number 2 is large CPMG supply chain companies. So we're in conversations right now with Unilever, Procter & Gamble, and Bayer, to name a few. We already did 1 carbon credit transaction with Nestle to help them track their supply chain on our blockchain. What that would look like is in deep conversations. It's a very, very big market. You're looking at a lot of moving parts, but there's some very exciting conversations happening at that level for us. And then also ag influencers. When you look at the agriculture space, when you look at subject matter experts that know how to do the tradition, when you hear me say match tradition with technology, We need influencers within our community that know the technology and know the tradition, and then we bring those at the intersection together with the Grow blockchain. And so as I look at the growth and as we look at kind of leaders within the community, how do we grow the network? How do we keep that moving? Well, we have to add people in the community that understand both sides of that and bring them together and allow them to create within the blockchain. So how can you help? Things that we can do. I spend all of my time looking at how to expand this network and increase those transactions. One, share Grow wallets. It's very simple. Inside of your Grow account, you have a link right at the top that says share. Every single person that adds that Grow wallet is helpful. Number two, encourage Grow transactions. Let me talk about what Grow transactions are. One, setting up a wallet. Two, running a node, purchasing a node and running that node, and then distributing the Grow rewards as a reward for running that node. Three, buying and selling Grow tokens on the DeFi exchanges and then the central exchanges as they approve us over the next couple of months. All of those transactions increase the graph that I showed earlier that generally leads to an increase of value and utility across the chain. And so the more people that we have essentially using the railway system that we've built, the more cars will come onto the road. And so I want to say that again, because everyone gets excited about the mission. If you're here, you probably care about where your food comes from. You probably care about the mission of nourishing the world. It's amazing. So do I. But if we do not build the railway system, the really shiny cars that we all want on the railway system, they won't come. And so the way that we build that railway is increasing that transactional volume in blockchain transactions. And those are some examples of how we do that. The last one is continuing to grow the network. As we continue to grow, as we continue to disrupt and innovate, it will be about how strong is our network. When you look at Bitcoin, it's strong because the number of people that use it. It's strong because of the number of transactions that it has. It's strong because of the number of the people that accept it, that it has value and will exchange in it. We're at the beginning of that. And as you see from our graph, one of the reasons that we've set up the tokenomics of our blockchain the way that we have is Bitcoin did the hard work. From 2007 to now, it has helped bring blockchain and crypto to the world. And we get to benefit from that. But we're still at the beginning. I look at this as the internet from 1995, where everyone looks at it, they know there's value, but they don't really know how to use it. That's okay. It's going to get easier. But right now, we're at that beginning phase to continue to grow and build the railway. So I'm going to end here. That's our updates. Any questions that anyone has, open it up, raise your hand. Feel free to put them in the chat.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Grow Renaissance podcast. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe this episode. Remember, it will take a community of us to do the best in the world and truly nourish not only ourselves, but the planet, the atmosphere, the soil, the plants, and the animals on it. So make sure you spread this message anywhere that you can.